Every so often, an anime comes around out of absolutely nowhere, such that the community can do nothing but stand by in shock. But a lot of the time, the initial hype of a series like this not only makes it difficult to dish out criticism, but also makes the community openly hostile to it. In a world that just came out of a rather bland anime year, anime fans want something that they can truly call a sleeper hit. Wonder Egg Priority, among those that follow it, seems to be that anime. And don't get me wrong, I think it's a great show, but let's take a step back. Wonder Egg Priority is certainly the best looking anime airing this season, and as a fan of surrealist media, I find its premise intriguing and enjoyable. But there is one principal flaw with this show that I'm worried people are just missing. If I want to explain Wonder Egg Priority, or any anime for that matter, I'm gonna have to explain what the hell it's about. Within the world of Wonder Egg Priority exists a number of eggs that, well, do a lot of things. Essentially, the distributors of those eggs, and for some reason you gotta buy them, have the ability to save any person you wish. In order for them to do so, you must gather enough points. These points are obtained by cracking open the eggs to begin a sort of game where dreams morph with reality. For example, in one of these games, she meets a gymnast that's abused by her coach but doesn't have the courage to defy her, which morphs into this thing. You still following me here? Our main character, Ai, is pulled into these games in her dreams in order to save her friend Koito, who's attempted suicide. And so Ai has to start cracking open eggs and fighting the monsters that emerge in order to bring Koito back to life. Now that I've explained what Wonder Egg Priority is about, the premise probably sounds familiar. And you would be absolutely right. The idea of fighting against the monstrous personification of someone's flaws or trauma is quintessentially Persona. Now you might think I'm reaching a little bit, but knowing that Wonder Egg is the product of Cloverworks, animation studio behind the Persona 5 anime, you might reconsider. Taking an inspiration from an adaptation your studio has worked on for an anime original project is not a new concept whatsoever. Kabaneri of the Iron Fortress, an original product from Attack on Titan studio WIT, is not at all hesitant in taking that inspiration. All of humanity lives inside of a train to hide from monsters they don't quite understand, and the main character becomes a half monster. By the way, Kabaneri of the Iron Fortress is a banger and you need to watch it. The point here being that original series inspired by non-original work can often turn out to be fantastic in their own right. Now you might be more familiar with their flagship work Darling in the Franxx, and you can clearly see the visual inspiration there, but to me, Wonder Egg shares more blood with Persona 5. And yes, most Persona anime aren't great, but it does give insight into where they likely took inspiration from. As for series creator Shinji Nojima, he probably isn't much of a household name to most anime fans. And if I told you about his other works, that would likely make a bit of sense. Like his 8-volume manga Nobello, which I legitimately could not find a single synopsis or explanation anywhere on the internet. The manga of his that I could find a summary for was Gacha Oni-chan, a manga about a girl getting a brother out of a vending machine. With all these things in mind, it's probably rather difficult to understand where Wonder Egg Priority came from, so let's just jump into the series itself. The first aspect of Wonder Egg Priority that stuck out to me are the eye-melting colors. Pretty much every character is designed with deliberately high contrast hues that allow them to stick out from their environment. Ai's blue hair combined with the bright yellow hoodie clashes so beautifully that no matter what frame she's in, she's the first thing your eye is ever drawn to. To be perfectly honest, I'm not exactly an expert when it comes to color design, but it's almost impossible to look at this anime and not be totally blown away. Even lonely, dark shots of Ai walking down the street have an almost dreamlike quality to it that keeps your attention on even the most mundane of conversations. During these fight scenes, these bright colors become an almost psychedelic experience as these rainbow-like monsters splatter their guts all over the landscape in the egg world. It seems to me like the animators just ask themselves in every scene, what color have we not used yet? Another visual victory for Wonder Egg Priority is ironically its use of CG. Now CG is something that I rarely laud in anime, mostly because it's almost always off-putting wherever it's used. After all, the benefit that anime tends to have over Western cartoons is in its natural hand-drawn look. So when the CG gets introduced into the picture, it seems to take away from that experience. Sometimes it's something that isn't too distracting and gets recognized as a necessary evil. But sometimes it's, In Wonder Egg Priority, CG is used in the see no evils that tend to accompany the humanoid traumas that the characters face. This is a situation where the most unsettling nature of the CG is used exactly where they belong, that is on the monsters that are deliberately designed to be unsettling. Here, it's not just for the ease of animation, but a deliberate design choice that fits the overall aesthetic. So while all these aspects explain the immediate visual appeal of Wonder Egg Priority, I want to talk about the bigger picture. This anime utilizes a technique that I've seen in many other surrealist anime that, in my view, creates a unique atmosphere for dark storytelling. That would be the mixing of cuteness, with horror. Anyone that has seen Madoka Magica knows exactly what I'm talking about. Madoka's actual themes and messages are ostensibly dark and psychological, dealing with themes of loneliness, depression, and hopelessness. However, that is all packed into an anime about cute magical girls fighting birthday cake monsters. Wonder Egg Priority utilizes a similar technique, but in a different way. The characters, the animation, and even the monsters are not exactly horrific. But in Wonder Egg, we watch as the bright, colorful little girls fight funny clown monsters, while talking about molestation and gender dynamics. In my view, this technique creates a kind of cognitive dissonance that ironically results in the deeper message resonating harder. It may just be a cheap way to make your anime more memorable and grow by word of mouth. So while anime, in my opinion, is the best platform for this sort of surrealist storytelling, I actually think that Wonder Egg Priority fumbles in implementing it. When I think of what exactly makes animation unique as a medium, I think back to Roger Ebert's review of Princess Mononoke. In particular, his point on the demon infestation of Nago. Quote, "That kind of breathing worm monster could not have been portrayed in a real-life action special effects film. It had to be animated." In other words, animation is a platform for creating visuals and experiences that simply cannot exist in the real world, even with the power of modern CG. And Wonder Egg absolutely does not hold back here. After all, the entire point of the series is the merging of dreams and reality. Nothing that occurs feels normal or natural. But we've already talked about how Wonder Egg uses surrealism in the visuals. We need to talk about how it uses it in the writing. From the very beginning, Wonder Egg uses the dream world to give us an insight into the dark themes that underlie it, rather than simply laying them down at our feet. And when I say dark themes, I really do mean dark themes. In episode 1, we get introduced to Koito, Ai's bullied friend who she plans to use the power of the Wonder Egg game to save from suicide. In episode 2, we focus on the young gymnast pressured into developing an eating disorder and forced to accept abuse from her coach. In episode 3, we meet Rika, a popular idol star who we see regularly engaging in self-harm, and join the game to save a fan who she pushed to suicide. In episode 4, one of the first lines of the episode was, "I was molested." Do you see where I'm going with this? Wonder Egg absolutely refuses to pull any punches whenever it comes to the topics it discusses. This is likely the reason why this series is receiving so much positive word of mouth on the internet. Now, it's not difficult to simply tackle these issues in a serious and measured way, but Wonder Egg instead uses its surrealist aspects to present these ideas in a way that grabs your attention, while also giving you time to digest what is going on. If a character simply looked straight at the screen and said, "I was abused," it is unlikely that the audience would feel an immediate connection. However, when the man who molests girls on the train morphs into some sort of creepy clown monster, it twists our mind as we attempt to process what exactly is going on our screen. It's only later, after the episode is ended, we have time to process what had happened. Except, what exactly did happen? This is the point that's likely to get me some flack. But I almost feel like people are praising this series' philosophy by simple virtue of having mature themes in the first place. In order for me to convey this point more clearly, let's talk about the transition from episode 3 to episode 4. In episode 3, both Ai and Rika together find themselves in the Wonder Egg dream game thing. They're trying to protect the duo Miko and Mako, two fanatical fans of the idol Yu Yu. So fanatical, in fact, they admit to acquiring adult sugar daddies in order to afford to see the idol before following her to suicide. This is simultaneously happening as we are learning about Rika's past self-harm and her overweight fan who she bullied into suicide. When I finally realized that these themes may have been more surface level than I originally thought is when it carried over into episode 4. At the beginning of this episode, we join Ai and Rika as they continue to fight off the monsters attacking Miko and Mako. All while also learning about the new character Momoe, who is protecting a young girl who is continuously molested by older men. Now, these scenes are absolutely mind-boggling, phenomenally visually amazing. I mean, likely the best animated sequence I've seen this whole season. But is there actually some broader message here? We are being asked to process the themes of self-harm, loss of personal self-respect, and sexual assault all at once, in a fever dream of action and colors. Again, Wonder Egg Priority uses this surrealism in a fantastic way and keeps you interested at every moment. But I really have to wonder what kind of values or metaphors I'm going to be garnering here. Take something like Perfect Blue, the renowned Satoshi Kon movie that tackles the same subjects of fame and how it can twist us. This movie is probably multiple times more surreal than Wonder Egg Priority, but has a far more laser focus. Every shot of dreamlike imagery and weirdness serves to display Mima's slow descent as she fails to cope with her desire to leave her idol personality behind. In Madoka Magica, the anime most compared with Wonder Egg Priority, each character has an individual trauma that they have to deal with. Over time, each of these threads are explored and expanded upon in a more natural way. The reason that these series are lauded for their themes is that the characters eventually settle on a stance on their demons. My problem with Wonder Egg Priority is that the themes of self-harm, sexual assault, and suicide are just brought up as something that the characters had to deal with, despite the fact that nearly all of these interactions end the same way. Characters say something bad has happened to them. They blame themselves or agree with the trauma monster. The egg user who shows up yells, "No, you're wrong!" They beat the monster, and the trauma is overcome. It's one thing to take such a basic, simplistic approach to such serious themes, introducing them so nonchalantly, but Wonder Egg Priority goes one step further and has us dealing with multiple of these themes at the same time, often overlapping or stacking on top of each other. Unlike in Perfect Blue or Madoka Magica, there isn't a focus on any one plot thread, any one theme, any one message. Now you might be asking, that's exactly what the Persona series did, right? And those games are just fine. In those games, we tackle sexual assault, suicide, child abuse, and repressed homosexuality. Why is going up against so many of these themes okay there? Well, that's exactly the issue. Wonder Egg Priority is a short 12-episode anime. The Persona games are upwards of 200 hours each. There are tons of arcs in Persona, sure, but each of these arcs are 5 to 10 hours long. But in Wonder Egg, these issues are brought up for a gasp and then the character disappears. Like, literally disappears in less than 5 to 10 minutes. I don't want to make accusations, but it almost strikes me as if the writers of Wonder Egg thought that they could create more word of mouth for the series if they just included every dark theme and trauma that they could think of. Sure, this series is only a couple episodes in at this point and has room to grow, but it absolutely needs to have more focus going forward for things to change. So all in all, what do I think of Wonder Egg Priority? As the title would suggest, it's an absolute beautiful mess. It's very clear that the creators of this series had an absolutely bold vision for an anime that would require some evaluation and thought without the baggage of power systems or super complex plots. And yes, the presentation of Wonder Egg Priority is some of the best I've seen in years. Any studio can take a fight scene and turn it into a delicious slice of Sakuga goodness like Jujutsu Kaisen, but Wonder Egg uses every tool at its disposal to give you a unique experience that is unforgettable. For those reasons, I expect it to show up in my top 3 anime of this season. But for those praising its approach to mature themes, I really gotta ask, what depth does it actually approach? Sure, Ai and Rika seem to be getting more slow development as time goes on, but when you force these characters to confront 50 different traumas of, and let's be real, totally irrelevant side characters for a single fight, how exactly do we focus on the problems that our main cast is facing? I really want to believe that this anime will challenge me in the same way that dark and surreal series such as Perfect Blue or Madoka Magica did, but at the moment it's gone from a thoughtful look at bullying and harassment to trying to tackle every single dark theme known to man. All that being said, Wonder Egg Priority still intrigues me more than any anime we've seen in a long time. We're only 4 episodes in, but all these flaws that I've pointed out still have time to be dealt with. And even if they don't, I still think that Wonder Egg Priority will end up being one of my favorite anime in many seasons. But if it doesn't, you should be subscribed and notified so you don't miss when that hot take drops. As well as plenty of other future content, so remember, take it easy, keep weeping, and I'll see y'all next time.